On a hot, cloudless morning, 40 minutes outside Austin, Texas, three partners stood at the edge of 84 acres of dry grassland, cedar scrub, and a single dirt access road. No buildings, no utilities, just dirt, a fence line, and a development plan. They paid $2.7 million for it. On paper, the plan was clean. Entitle the land, split it into 140 residential lots, sell the lots to a home builder, and walk away with a $2.4 million profit. 33 months later, the same three partners sold the land, still mostly raw, for a price that wiped out their investors and left the sponsors personally writing checks. The deal did not lose a little. It lost roughly $900,000 of real money. In the next 30 minutes, we are going to open this deal, and we are going to open it precisely because it failed. Every assumption, every line of the capital stack, every month the plan slipped, every mistake. Anatomy of the deal. Here is how this episode is structured. The asset. 84 acres of raw, unentitled land, roughly 40 minutes by road from downtown Austin, in the path of a metro area that had grown for more than a decade. Gently rolling terrain. Dry season grass, cedar, a seasonal creek crossing one corner, one unpaved access road off a county farm to market route, no water line, no sewer line, no electrical service to the interior, no zoning entitlement for housing. It was, in the most literal sense, dirt, and the entire deal was a bet on turning that dirt into something a home builder would pay far more for. So, the thesis. Raw land by itself produces nothing. It generates no rent, no income, no cash flow. It only costs money, property taxes, insurance, loan interest. You do not make money owning raw land. You make money changing what the land is allowed to become. The partners' bet was a process bet. Take 84 acres of agricultural zone dirt, secure the entitlements and the utilities to make it legally buildable housing, subdivide it into 140 finished residential lots, and sell those lots to a national home builder hungry for inventory in the Austin path of growth. A home builder will pay a large premium for a finished, entitled, utility-served lot because the builder can put a house on it immediately. The profit is the spread between the price of raw dirt and the price of a buildable lot. Why did this look like a good deal in the first place? Because the comparable math was genuinely strong. At the time the partners signed the contract, finished residential lots in that submarket were selling to builders for roughly $65,000 to $75,000 each. 140 lots at even $70,000 is $9.8 million of gross lot revenue. Against a $2.7 million land cost and a projected development budget, the spread looked enormous. On a spreadsheet, in that market, on that day, the deal looked close to unlosable. Hold that phrase. Close to unlosable is the most dangerous sentence in real estate. Now the warning. The partners did not weigh heavily enough. A subdivision profit is not earned on the day you buy. It is earned years later, at the far end of a long process in a market you cannot see yet. Between the purchase and the payday sit the entitlement, the engineering, the utility construction, and the home builder's willingness to buy, and every one of those steps takes time. Time is the hidden variable in every land deal. The longer the process runs, the more interest you pay, and the more the market can move against you. The partners underwrote the spread carefully. They underwrote the time carelessly. Let's walk the plan exactly as the partners pitched it to their investors. On paper, it had 4 phases and a clean projected profit. Phase 1, entitlement and platting. Take the land through the county and the relevant authorities to secure approval for a 140 lot residential subdivision and record a final plat, the legal map that makes the lots real, individual, sellable parcels. The partners budgeted 9 months for this phase. Hold that number. 9 months. It is the single most important assumption in the entire deal. Phase 2, engineering and design. Civil engineering for the roads, the drainage, the water and sewer layout, the grading plan, Budgeted at 6 months, running partly in parallel with the tail of entitlement. Phase 3, horizontal construction. This is the dirt work, clearing, grading, building the streets, and installing the water, sewer, and drainage infrastructure that turns a field into a serviced subdivision. Budgeted at 12 months and roughly $3.1 million of hard cost. Phase 4, lot sales. The homebuilder takes the finished lots, typically in scheduled takedowns over 12 to 18 months. Now the projected profit, the number the investors signed up for. Total project cost, land, entitlement, engineering, horizontal construction, financing, and overhead, was budgeted at approximately $7.4 million. Gross lot revenue at 140 lots and conservative pricing was projected at $9.8 million. $9.8 million of revenue minus $7.4 million of cost is a projected profit of about $2.4 million. On roughly $2.6 million of total equity, that is a near doubling of investor capital over about a 30-month plan. A clean, attractive, professional-looking pro forma. Every number in it was defensible. The deal still lost money. That is the lesson of this entire episode. Now the money. And a land deal has a particular fragile capital stack because for years it funds something that earns absolutely nothing. Let's walk it from the bottom up. Total project cost as budgeted was $7.4 million. At the bottom, a land loan of $1.62 million, a loan secured against the raw dirt to cover most of the purchase price. Land loans are conservative. A lender knows raw land is hard to sell and produces no income, so they lend a modest fraction of its value at a higher rate than a normal mortgage. Above that, a horizontal development loan of $3.1 million to fund the road and utility construction, released in draws like a construction loan against completed work. Then the equity. The 3 sponsors put in about $340,000 of their own money. And the limited partners, 14 of them on this deal, funded $2.34 million. Here is the structural weakness, and it is worth slowing down on. Both loans carried interest from the day they funded. The land loan at roughly 9%, the development loan at roughly 10%, floating on the drawn balance. But the project produced no income at all, not a dollar, until the very end when lots finally sold. So every month of the deal, interest accrued, and there was no rent, no cash flow, nothing coming in to pay it. The interest was either paid out of the investor's equity or added to the loan balance. A land deal does not have an operating cushion. Every month that passes is pure cost, and the only thing that ever pays it back is the final sale. The longer the deal runs, the more this quietly eats the profit. The LP investor terms. An 8% preferred return structured to accrue, because again, there was no income during the development years to actually pay it. The unpaid pref piled up and compounded. After the accrued pref was satisfied at the eventual sale, profit was to split 70-30 in favor of the LPs up to a 16% return, then 50-50 above it. On the projected numbers, the LPs were looking at roughly a 1.8 times multiple on their money. But notice what an accruing structure does in a deal that goes wrong. The pref keeps accruing whether or not the deal performs. When a deal makes money, that protects the investors. When a deal loses money, the accrued pref is simply one more claim that the shrinking pile of proceeds cannot cover. Now the part of the deal where it actually came apart. Not in a dramatic collapse, in a slow, quiet slip of the calendar. Phase 1 was budgeted at 9 months. It took 26. Not because anyone did anything catastrophically wrong, but because a chain of ordinary delays linked together, each one feeding the next. Delay 1, a regional water and wastewater capacity study. The utility provider that was to serve the subdivision was itself reviewing capacity across a fast-growing area and would not commit a service availability letter until that study concluded. no committed utility service, no final plat. That alone added about 7 months. Delay 2, a drainage and floodplain revision. The seasonal creek in the corner of the property triggered a more detailed floodplain study than the partners had budgeted, which forced an engineering redesign of the lot layout near the creek and a resubmittal. Another 5 months. Delay 3, the review cycle itself. Every resubmittal to the county went into a queue. In a slow growth period, a queue moves fast, but the Austin Metro was booming. Every engineering firm and every review department was overloaded, and each round of comments and corrections took 2 to 3 months to come back. The partners went through 4 full review cycles. None of these delays was unreasonable on its own. None of them was anyone's fault, exactly. But stacked end to end, a 9-month phase became a 26-month phase. And the deal had borrowed money the entire time on the assumption of 9. Now do the math on what those 17 extra months cost. The land loan and the accruing development costs were carrying interest the entire stretch. 17 unbudgeted months of interest, holding costs, taxes, insurance, and extended overhead added up to roughly $680,000 of costs that the original pro forma never contained. And the partners had no real contingency funded to absorb it. The pro forma had a contingency line, but it was thin. And worse, it had been sized for construction surprises in phase 3, not for a delay in phase 1. So the delay cost was paid by drawing down reserves and adding to loan balances. The deal was bleeding before the first road was ever built. Let's stop and account for the money honestly, because this is where a failed deal teaches the most. By the time the partners stopped spending, about $6.5 million had gone into the ground. Walk the lines. $2.78 million for the land and its closing costs. $710,000 for entitlement and engineering. Well over the budget because 4 review cycles meant 4 rounds of engineering revisions and resubmittal fees. $1.34 million for partial horizontal construction. The partners did clear and rough grade the site and begin some road work before the cash ran short and the work stopped. $1.22 million in interest and financing costs, almost double the underwritten figure entirely because of the 17 extra months. And $460,000 in taxes, insurance, and overhead. Notice what is missing from that list. Revenue. $6.5 million deployed and not a single finished lot ever sold because the subdivision was never finished. The deal got the land entitled and the plat recorded, and it got the roads partly built, but it ran out of money and time before it reached the only event that ever produces income, a homebuilder closing on finished lots. This is the brutal arithmetic of development. A half-built subdivision is not worth half of a finished one. An unfinished project is often worth barely more than the raw land because the next buyer has to absorb the cost and risk of completing everything you started. And then the market moved. Remember, the plan assumed about 30 months. The deal was now past 33 months and still not finished. Over that stretch, interest rates rose sharply. Higher rates slowed home building. Builders, suddenly cautious, pulled back hard on buying new lot inventory and pushed for lower prices. The finished lot value that had underwritten at $70,000 was now realistically closer to $58,000 in that submarket. The deal had set out to sell into a hot builder market. It was now staring at a cold one. Time did not just cost interest. Time also moved the exit. Now the exit. Except on this deal, the exit was not chosen. It was forced. By month 31, the development loan was nearly exhausted, and the land loan was approaching its maturity date. The partners faced a hard fork. Option 1, raise a substantial round of fresh equity to finish the horizontal construction and carry the deal until the builder market recovered. But raising rescue capital into a known trouble deal is brutally hard, and any new money would have demanded terms that pushed the original investors far down the line. Option 2, sell the project as is, unfinished, and accept whatever the market would pay for a partly built subdivision. Option 3, let the lender foreclose, which would wipe out the equity entirely and damage the sponsor's ability to ever raise money again. The partners chose option 2, the controlled sale. They marketed the entitled, plat-recorded, partly graded project to other developers and to a few home builders with land development arms, buyers equipped to finish what was started. After a thin and difficult marketing process, the project sold for $5.6 million. $5.6 million. Against about $6.5 million of cash deployed, and against a loan and accrued cost balance that, with everything, stood near $6 million. The sale price did not even fully cover what had been spent. A controlled sale at a loss is an ugly outcome, but it returned something to the lenders and left a small amount for the equity, which is meaningfully better than a foreclosure where the equity gets nothing and the sponsors carry a foreclosure on their record forever. Now let's walk who lost what. A profit waterfall pays people in order of priority. A loss runs the same order in reverse. The bottom of the stack absorbs the damage first. Starts at the bottom of the stack because the bottom gets paid first. The lenders. The land loan and the development loan together had to be repaid in full from the sale, about $4.42 million, plus accrued fees and a maturity penalty of roughly $130,000. The lenders were made whole. That is what being at the bottom of the capital stack buys you. First claim on the proceeds, win or lose. Sale closing costs and the broker took another $210,000. After the lenders and the transaction costs, the net proceeds left for all of the equity, sponsors and limited partners together, were about $840,000. Now the equity. The limited partners had put in $2.34 million. The sponsors had put in $340,000. Total equity invested, $2.68 million. Total equity returned at the sale, about $840,000. The equity as a whole lost roughly $1.84 million of the money that went in. But the partners had also pledged a sponsor recourse guarantee on a slice of the development loan, meaning the lender could pursue the sponsors personally for a defined shortfall. To settle that guarantee, the three sponsors collectively wrote personal checks totaling about $940,000 on top of losing their invested equity. So let's name the realized loss plainly. The 14 limited partners received about $840,000 back against $2.34 million invested, recovering roughly 36 cents on the dollar and losing about $1.5 million as a group. The three sponsors lost their $340,000 of invested equity and then paid an additional $940,000 to satisfy the recourse guarantee. Net, the sponsor team was out roughly $1.28 million of personal money. A deal that was pitched in good faith with a defensible $2.4 million projected profit produced instead a combined realized loss of roughly $2.8 million across everyone. And for the headline of this episode, a clean $900,000 hole on the sponsor's own side once their lost equity and their guarantee payment are netted against each other. This entire deal is the mistake. But three specific nameable errors turned a risky deal into a losing one. Mistake 1. The partners underwrote the entitlement at 9 months because 9 months was achievable in a calm market. They did not stress test it. They never modeled what an 18 or 24-month entitlement would do to the interest line and the exit. On any land deal now, the discipline is to underwrite the entitlement timeline to a pessimistic case and to confirm the deal still survives if entitlement takes twice as long as hoped. Mistake 2. The contingency was thin, and it was aimed entirely at construction surprises in Phase 3. There was almost nothing reserved for a delay in Phase 1, which is exactly where the deal actually broke. A real land deal carries a separate funded timeline and interest reserve, sized for many months of unplanned carry, sitting in cash from day one. A contingency that only covers the risk you happen to think of is not a contingency. Mistake 3. The sponsor signed a personal recourse guarantee on the development loan for a long, speculative, multi-year process whose timing they did not control. That single signature is what turned a lost investment into personal financial damage. The lesson is never sign recourse. It is to price recourse honestly as a real personal risk, and to be far more cautious about pledging it on a deal whose outcome depends on a government review queue. That is the anatomy of a land deal that lost roughly $900,000. 84 acres of Texas dirt in the path of growth. A clean, defensible pro forma promising a $2.4 million profit. 33 months of entitlement delay, accruing interest, and a market that turned cold. 14 investors recovered 36 cents on the dollar. 3 sponsors lost their equity and wrote personal checks on top of it. All from one careless assumption that a 9-month process would actually take 9 months. Future episodes of this channel will go deeper. We will do ground up deals, distressed deals, deals that succeeded and deals that failed, other markets, other asset classes, other capital stacks. But the structure of every episode will be the same. We open the deal. We show you every number. We name every mistake. Anatomy of the deal. If you want to see real numbers on real deals, the wins and the losses, subscribe. We are just getting started.